What if the biggest reason your income hasn't changed isn't your job, your education, or the economy, but the way you've been programmed to see yourself? That may sound surprising, but your self-image quietly influences every financial result you experience. If you've ever felt like you're working harder every year without making the progress you truly want, you're not alone. Many people aren't limited by their ability. They're limited by invisible beliefs they've carried for years. In this video, you'll discover how to reshape those beliefs through practical meditation, intentional visualization, subconscious conditioning, and a stronger self-image inspired by the timeless principles behind the law of compensation. These aren't quick tricks or empty motivational slogans. They're daily mental practices that can transform the way you think, act, and create value. If you're ready to break old financial patterns and build a mindset that supports lasting prosperity, subscribe now and let's begin this journey together. 1. Recognize your current self-image shapes every income result today. Most people believe their income is determined by the economy, their education, their experience, or the opportunities around them. Those things certainly play a role, but they are rarely the deepest cause. The deepest cause is something far more personal and far more powerful. It is the image you hold of yourself. Whether you realize it or not, you carry a silent picture in your mind that defines what feels normal, possible, and deserved. That picture quietly influences every decision you make, every opportunity you notice, and every action you take. If you want to create a dramatic change in your financial life, you must first recognize that your current self-image is shaping every income result you experience today. Think about how often people say, "I'm just not good with money," or "people like me never become wealthy." These may sound like simple opinions, but they are much more than that. They are identity statements. When you repeat them often enough, they become instructions for your subconscious mind. Your subconscious doesn't argue with those statements. It simply accepts them as facts and begins organizing your behavior to match them. You start making choices that support the identity you have accepted, even if those choices keep you stuck exactly where you are. This is why two people can have similar skills, similar education, and similar opportunities, yet produce completely different financial results. One person naturally asks for a promotion, starts a business, or confidently negotiates higher pay. The other hesitates, doubts themselves, and waits for permission that never comes. The difference is often not talent, it is self-image. One person sees success as something they belong in. The other secretly believes success belongs to someone else. Your self-image was not created overnight. It has been developing for years through repeated experiences, conversations, emotions, and beliefs. Every compliment, every criticism, every success, and every disappointment has contributed to the picture you carry inside. As a child, you may have heard adults talk about money with fear or frustration. You may have watched hardworking people struggle despite their best efforts. Without realizing it, your mind collected those observations and used them to create expectations about what life should look like. Over time, those expectations became familiar, and familiarity often feels like truth. The interesting thing about the subconscious mind is that it is always listening. It learns through repetition far more than through logic. You cannot simply tell yourself once that you deserve abundance and expect everything to change immediately. Years of repeated thinking have built your current self-image. Changing that image requires new patterns that are repeated with equal consistency. This is where intentional thinking becomes so important. Every thought you entertain is either reinforcing the old picture or helping create a new one. Meditation becomes one of the most effective tools because it slows the constant noise that usually fills the mind. Most people spend their days reacting. They react to bills, emails, traffic, conversations, and unexpected problems. Their attention is constantly pulled outward, leaving very little space to consciously direct their thinking. During meditation, however, something different happens. You step away from the endless stream of distractions. You become aware of your thoughts instead of automatically believing every one of them. That awareness creates the opportunity for change. As you sit quietly and allow your breathing to settle, you begin noticing the stories you repeatedly tell yourself. You may discover hidden doubts you never realized were influencing your decisions. Perhaps you notice a quiet belief that earning more money will create stress, or that wealthy people are somehow different from you. These thoughts may have been operating beneath your awareness for years. Meditation brings them into the light where they can finally be questioned instead of automatically accepted. Once you become aware of these limiting beliefs, you gain the power to replace them intentionally. Instead of allowing old mental habits to continue running your life, you begin planting new ideas. During meditation, you can calmly focus on thoughts that support the person you are becoming. You can repeatedly imagine yourself as someone who creates value confidently, receives greater income naturally, and approaches opportunities with calm certainty. The goal is not to escape reality. The goal is to train your mind to accept a new reality before it fully appears in your physical experience. Repeated thinking gradually creates subconscious patterns. This happens whether your thoughts are positive or negative. If every morning begins with worry, criticism, and fear, those emotions become familiar. Your subconscious starts expecting them, and your behavior follows accordingly. But if each day begins with focused, intentional thinking, your subconscious begins adapting to those new expectations instead. Slowly, almost quietly, your reactions begin changing. Situations that once intimidated you start feeling manageable. Opportunities that once seemed impossible begin appearing realistic. Imagine someone who has always believed they could never earn beyond a certain amount each year. Whenever a larger opportunity appears, they immediately think, "That's probably not for me." They don't even realize the thought has appeared because it happens so quickly. It feels automatic, but after months of intentional meditation and conscious mental conditioning, something changes. The same opportunity appears again, and this time the first thought is different. Instead of rejecting it immediately, they think, "Maybe I can learn how to do this." That small shift seems almost insignificant, yet it changes everything because different thoughts produce different actions. Mental conditioning works much like physical conditioning. No one expects to build strength after exercising only once. Progress comes through steady repetition. The same principle applies to your thinking. Every day you intentionally direct your attention toward confidence, abundance, and personal growth. You strengthen those mental pathways. Eventually they become more natural than the old habits ever were. What once required conscious effort begins happening automatically. This is why patience matters. Many people become discouraged because they expect immediate external results. They meditate for a few days, repeat affirmations for a week, and then decide nothing is happening. But the deepest changes always begin beneath the surface. Just as a seed develops unseen before it breaks through the soil, your subconscious begins reorganizing long before visible results appear. New beliefs quietly influence your decisions, your conversations, your confidence, and your willingness to take meaningful action. As your self-image improves, you also become more aware of the value you bring to others. Instead of focusing entirely on what you want to receive, you naturally begin asking how you can contribute more effectively. You communicate more clearly. You solve problems more confidently. You develop new skills because they fit the identity you are building. Increased income becomes less about chasing money and more about becoming someone whose contribution naturally deserves greater compensation. This inner transformation changes how you respond to setbacks as well. Instead of seeing temporary disappointments as proof that you are not capable, you begin viewing them as information. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to improve rather than evidence that you should quit. That resilience grows directly from your new self-image. You no longer define yourself by one difficult moment, because your identity has become stronger than your circumstances. So before you focus on changing your bank account, focus on changing the picture you carry within yourself. Spend time each day in quiet meditation. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Replace limiting beliefs with empowering ones through calm, repeated attention. Condition your mind with the same dedication you would use to master any valuable skill. As your inner image begins to change, your decisions will change, your confidence will grow, and your results will begin reflecting the person you now believe yourself to be. And once that foundation is firmly established, you are ready to explore what happens when you deliberately create a clear vision of the financial life you truly intend to experience. To visualize your desired monthly income until your subconscious accepts it. Once you begin seeing yourself differently, the next step is to give your mind a clear destination. A mind without a definite picture drifts toward familiar results, even when you sincerely want something better. This is why so many people work harder every year without experiencing meaningful financial change. They have effort, but they lack a clear internal image. They hope for more income, yet they never deliberately train their mind to become familiar with receiving it. Your subconscious responds much more effectively to a specific picture than to a vague wish. Instead of saying, I want to make more money, create a precise image of your desired monthly income. Notice the difference between yearly thinking and monthly thinking. A yearly number often feels distant and abstract. A monthly amount feels immediate. It connects directly to your everyday decisions, your habits, and the way you manage your time. When your mind begins accepting a new monthly standard, your daily behavior naturally starts aligning with it. Visualization is often misunderstood because people imagine it is simply daydreaming. It is much more intentional than that. Daydreaming wanders without direction. Visualization has purpose. It is the deliberate practice of mentally experiencing the life you intend to create until it becomes emotionally familiar. You are not pretending something already exists in the physical world. You are training your subconscious to recognize a new possibility as normal rather than impossible. This is where meditation becomes especially valuable. After allowing your mind to settle into a calm and attentive state, introduce one clear mental picture. Do not overload yourself with dozens of goals or endless details. Keep your attention focused on one meaningful outcome. Imagine yourself receiving your desired monthly income with quiet confidence. Notice how you carry yourself. Notice how you think about your work. Observe the calm certainty that replaces anxiety. Let your mind become comfortable with that version of yourself. The emotional quality of the visualization matters just as much as the picture itself. Many people imagine success while secretly feeling doubt, impatience, or disbelief. Those conflicting emotions weaken the conditioning process. Instead, practice generating emotions that match the future you are creating. Feel appreciation for the opportunities before they fully appear. Feel confidence without needing immediate proof. Feel responsible rather than lucky. These emotions teach your subconscious what your new normal should feel like. Imagine someone preparing for an important job interview. If they spend the previous week imagining rejection, embarrassment, and failure, those mental rehearsals influence how they speak, how they sit, and how confidently they answer questions. But if they repeatedly visualize themselves communicating clearly, listening carefully, and responding with confidence, they enter the interview with a completely different presence. The visualization has not guaranteed the outcome, but it has conditioned their mind to perform differently. The same principle applies to financial growth. Many successful performers understand this naturally. Athletes mentally rehearse their movements before competition. Musicians imagine flawless performances before stepping onto the stage. Pilots train with simulations before facing real situations. They understand that the brain responds to repeated mental practice. Your financial life deserves the same level of preparation. Before expecting your outer world to change, repeatedly practice becoming the person who naturally produces greater value and receives greater compensation. One practical exercise is to create a short visualization that lasts only a few minutes. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and allow your breathing to become steady. Then picture yourself at the end of a successful month. You review your income with gratitude and calm satisfaction. You are not surprised because it matches the standard you have been building internally. Notice the decisions that led you there. See yourself completing meaningful work, serving people well, learning continuously, and acting with confidence whenever opportunities appeared. Let the entire experience feel ordinary instead of extraordinary. This last point is important because your subconscious prefers what feels familiar. If enormous success feels shocking or uncomfortable in your imagination, your mind may quietly resist it. Instead of imagining dramatic celebrations every time, imagine peaceful confidence. Imagine handling greater income responsibly. Imagine making thoughtful financial decisions. Imagine continuing to grow with humility and discipline. When prosperity begins feeling natural instead of overwhelming, resistance gradually decreases. Another valuable practice is to pay attention to the mental images that appear automatically throughout your day. Many people unknowingly visualize negative outcomes with incredible consistency. They picture unpaid bills before opening the mailbox, They imagine failure before beginning a project. They expect rejection before making an important phone call. These are visualizations too, even though they happen unconsciously. If you can unintentionally condition your mind toward limitation, you can intentionally condition it toward growth. Each time you notice an unhelpful mental picture, pause without criticizing yourself. Simply replace it with a better one. If your mind imagines losing an opportunity, consciously picture yourself preparing well and contributing confidently. If you automatically expect financial pressure, gently shift your attention toward creative solutions, productive work, and increasing value. These small corrections may seem insignificant individually, but together they gradually reshape your dominant thinking patterns. Your environment can also strengthen your visualization practice. Keep reminders of your goals where you naturally see them. Write your desired monthly income in a place that encourages reflection rather than pressure. Read it calmly each morning before meditation and again before sleep. Do not stare at it with frustration because it has not yet appeared. Read it as a statement of direction. Every repetition tells your subconscious that this goal remains important. It is equally important to avoid becoming emotionally attached to the exact timing. The purpose of visualization is not to create tension about when something will happen. Its purpose is to transform the person who is creating the result. When your focus shifts from forcing outcomes to developing yourself, you become more patient, more observant, and more prepared for opportunities that might otherwise pass unnoticed. You may discover that your original idea of increasing income changes as your thinking expands. Perhaps you begin seeing opportunities to develop new skills, improve your communication, start an additional source of income, or solve problems for more people. These ideas often emerge because your subconscious has begun searching for pathways that match your new internal standard. What once seemed invisible now becomes obvious because your attention has changed. Consider someone who has always believed that earning more requires working longer hours. As they consistently visualize themselves creating greater value instead of simply spending more time, their thinking begins shifting. They start asking different questions. How can I become more effective? What problems can I solve that others overlook? What knowledge would make my contribution more valuable? Those questions lead to different actions, and different actions eventually produce different results. Visualization also strengthens persistence. When challenges appear, you are less likely to abandon your goal because you have rehearsed your future so many times that it feels worth protecting. Temporary setbacks lose some of their emotional power because your attention remains connected to the larger picture you have been conditioning every day. You stop reacting only to present circumstances and begin responding from the identity you are intentionally building. There will be days when your imagination feels vivid and days when it feels ordinary. Continue anyway. Mental conditioning is not measured by a single session, but by steady repetition over time. Just as water gradually shapes stone through consistent flow rather than sudden force, repeated visualization quietly influences your beliefs, your expectations, and your choices. Eventually, the image that once felt distant begins feeling completely natural. And when your subconscious finally accepts that new monthly standard as part of who you are, your attention, decisions, conversations, and actions begin expressing that acceptance in ways that seem almost effortless. That is the moment when your inner world starts preparing you for an even deeper transformation. One built not only on seeing a new future, but on replacing every belief that has ever convinced you it was beyond your reach. 3. Meditate daily to replace limiting beliefs with empowering financial expectations. The pictures you create in your mind become even more powerful when they are supported by beliefs that no longer argue against them. This is why daily meditation deserves a permanent place in your routine. It is not simply a way to relax after a busy day. It is a deliberate period of mental training where you begin replacing old conclusions with new expectations. Every day gives you another opportunity to strengthen the thoughts that move you forward and weaken the ones that quietly hold you back. Most limiting beliefs are so familiar that they no longer feel like beliefs at all. They feel like facts. Someone might believe that earning a high income always requires exhaustion, or that financial freedom belongs only to people with extraordinary talent. These ideas are rarely questioned because they have been repeated for years. the mind eventually stops examining them and starts building life around them. Meditation creates enough mental space for those hidden assumptions to become visible. When your attention becomes calm, you can observe your thoughts without immediately following them. Imagine sitting quietly for 10 or 15 minutes before your day begins. Instead of planning every task or worrying about every responsibility, you simply notice the conversations taking place inside your own mind. You may discover patterns that have been influencing you for years without your awareness. Perhaps every ambitious goal is followed by an automatic thought saying, "That's too difficult." Maybe every financial opportunity is followed by, "Someone else is more qualified." Recognizing these patterns is the beginning of changing them. The goal is not to fight those thoughts or become frustrated by their appearance. Resistance often gives them more energy. Instead, acknowledge them calmly and choose a different direction. If your mind presents a limiting belief, answer it with a more useful belief that you intentionally want to develop. Over time, this practice becomes less about arguing with yourself and more about gently guiding your thinking toward the person you intend to become. Think about someone learning a new language. At first, they naturally translate everything back into the language they already know. It takes consistent practice before the new language begins flowing automatically. Your thinking works in much the same way. Your subconscious has become fluent in certain beliefs because it has practiced them for years. Daily meditation gives you the opportunity to become fluent in a completely different way of thinking. One effective approach is to choose a single empowering belief for an entire week instead of changing your focus every day. Keep it simple, believable, and connected to growth. It might be something like, "My value continues to increase," or "I learned skills that create greater opportunities." During meditation, repeat the statement slowly, allowing yourself to consider what it actually means rather than rushing through the words. Your objective is not memorization. Your objective is acceptance. Acceptance develops through familiarity. The subconscious becomes comfortable with ideas that are presented consistently and without emotional conflict. This is why your attitude during meditation matters. Approach the practice with curiosity instead of pressure. You are not trying to force yourself into instant transformation. You are patiently introducing your mind to a healthier pattern of thinking until it becomes natural. Many people unknowingly spend hours every day reinforcing financial limitations through ordinary conversations. They complain about rising expenses, compare themselves to others, or constantly predict future difficulties. None of these habits seem significant in isolation, but together they shape expectations. Every repeated statement becomes another instruction for the subconscious. Meditation helps interrupt this cycle because it teaches you to become more intentional with the thoughts you repeatedly entertain. As your awareness grows, you begin noticing the connection between your beliefs and your emotional reactions. Suppose someone offers you a chance to lead a larger project at work. One person immediately feels excitement because they believe they can grow into greater responsibility. Another person instantly feels fear because they believe they are likely to fail. The opportunity is identical, but the belief determines the emotional response. The emotion then influences the action. Meditation allows you to strengthen beliefs that generate confidence instead of hesitation. There is another important benefit that often goes unnoticed. Daily meditation reduces the influence of mental noise created by constant external information. Every day you are surrounded by opinions, headlines, advertisements, social media updates, and conversations competing for your attention. Without realizing it, these messages shape your expectations. If you consume negativity without balance, your subconscious gradually accepts it as an accurate picture of reality. A quiet period of reflection helps restore your ability to choose which ideas deserve a permanent place in your thinking. Consider a gardener preparing healthy soil before planting seeds. The quality of the soil determines how well the seeds will grow. Your subconscious is similar. Meditation prepares the mental environment, so empowering beliefs can take root more effectively. Without that preparation, even excellent ideas may struggle because they are competing against years of automatic conditioning. Another practical habit is to end each meditation by asking yourself one thoughtful question. Instead of asking, "Why am I not successful yet?" ask, "What kind of person naturally earns the income I desire?" Notice how different those questions feel. The first focuses on absence. The second focuses on growth. Your subconscious responds to the direction of your questions. Better questions encourage better thinking, and better thinking gradually influences better decisions. As these new beliefs become stronger, you may notice subtle changes in everyday situations. You become more willing to introduce yourself to new people. You speak with greater clarity during important conversations. You volunteer ideas that you might have kept to yourself in the past. You begin finishing projects with greater consistency because your expectations of yourself have improved. These behaviors are not separate from meditation. They are evidence that your internal conditioning is influencing your external actions. It is also helpful to remember that empowering financial expectations are not based on wishful thinking. They are based on becoming someone who consistently creates greater value. Meditation does not replace learning, effort, or responsibility. It strengthens the mindset that allows those qualities to be expressed more fully. When your beliefs support growth, you naturally become more disciplined, more teachable, and more persistent. Those characteristics increase your ability to contribute, and greater contribution often leads to greater compensation. You may encounter moments when old beliefs attempt to return, especially during periods of uncertainty. This is completely normal. Long-established mental habits rarely disappear all at once. Instead of interpreting those moments as failure, view them as opportunities to reinforce your new direction. Each time you choose an empowering belief over a limiting one, you strengthen the pathway you truly want your mind to follow. Consistency matters far more than intensity. A calm 15-minute practice repeated every day will usually create deeper change than occasional sessions filled with enthusiasm but separated by long periods of neglect. Mental conditioning follows the same principle as any meaningful skill. Progress belongs to those who remain committed long enough for new habits to become part of their identity. Eventually, the beliefs that once required conscious effort begin operating quietly beneath the surface. You no longer have to remind yourself to think like a person who expects growth, because that expectation has become part of who you are. Your decisions reflect it. Your conversations reveal it. Your standards rise because your self-image has expanded to match your new understanding. And when empowering expectations become your default way of thinking, you are no longer driven by the limitations of your past. You begin moving with a steady confidence that comes from within, creating the perfect foundation for strengthening your mindset through intentional repetition until every thought, emotion, and action consistently supports the life you have chosen to build. 4. Strengthen your mindset through consistent affirmations and focused emotional repetition. Once empowering expectations begin taking root, they need regular reinforcement if they are going to become part of your everyday thinking. The mind is shaped by what it hears repeatedly, especially when those words are connected to genuine emotion. This is why affirmations can become such a valuable practice when they are used with intention. They are not empty phrases designed to create temporary excitement. They are carefully chosen statements that remind you of the person you are becoming and the standards you are choosing to live by. Many people dismiss affirmations because they have seen them used without understanding. They repeat words mechanically while their attention is somewhere else. Their mouth speaks, but their mind is occupied with worry, distraction, or doubt. Under those conditions, very little changes. The real purpose of an affirmation is not to recite a sentence. It is to focus your awareness on an idea long enough for it to influence your thinking, your emotions, and eventually your behavior. Think about how naturally negative affirmations appear in everyday life. Someone says, "I never get lucky," every time something goes wrong. Another person constantly repeats, "I'm terrible with money," whenever they make a financial mistake. These statements are affirmations too. They are simply affirming limitations instead of possibilities. Every repetition strengthens the identity behind the words. Over months and years, those casual comments quietly become part of the subconscious program that influences future decisions. Now imagine reversing that process. Instead of reinforcing weakness, you begin reinforcing strength. Instead of confirming limitation, you begin confirming growth. The statements you choose should encourage progress rather than perfection. They should reflect the direction of your life instead of pretending you have already completed the journey. A statement such as, "I am becoming someone who creates increasing value every day," allows your mind to embrace continuous improvement. It encourages movement rather than pressure. There is an important difference between speaking words and experiencing them. Emotion gives your affirmations weight. If the words remain disconnected from feeling, they often stay at the surface level of awareness. But when you pause, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to appreciate the meaning behind each sentence, your subconscious pays greater attention. Emotion acts like emphasis in a conversation. It tells the mind, "This matters, remember this." One practical approach is to combine affirmations with your daily meditation instead of treating them as separate habits. After your mind becomes calm and attentive, introduce one or two meaningful statements. Speak them slowly, either aloud or silently. Leave a few moments of silence after each one. During those quiet moments, allow yourself to imagine what life looks like when that statement becomes your natural way of thinking. You are giving your subconscious both language and experience at the same time. Timing also influences effectiveness. The first few minutes after waking often provide an excellent opportunity because your mind has not yet become overwhelmed by the demands of the day. Likewise, the moments before sleep allow your final thoughts to settle gently into your subconscious. By beginning and ending your day with intentional messages, you gradually reduce the influence of random thoughts that would otherwise dominate your attention. It is also helpful to understand that repetition is not about speed. Some people rush through a list of 50 affirmations every morning, believing that more words automatically produce greater results. Yet lasting change usually comes from depth rather than quantity. One carefully considered affirmation, repeated with full attention for several weeks, often creates a greater impact than dozens of statements spoken without presence. Your subconscious responds to consistency and clarity more than volume. Consider the way a skilled teacher helps a student master a difficult subject. They do not introduce hundreds of unrelated lessons in one afternoon. They focus on one important principle until understanding develops naturally. Your mind benefits from the same patient approach. Stay with one empowering idea long enough for it to influence your everyday reactions before moving on to another. Focused emotional repetition extends beyond formal meditation sessions. Throughout the day, ordinary situations become opportunities to strengthen your new mindset. Suppose you receive positive feedback after completing a project. Instead of dismissing it or telling yourself it was just luck, pause for a moment. Accept the compliment fully. Quietly repeat your affirmation and connect it to the experience you have just had. This strengthens the relationship between your inner beliefs and your outer experiences. The same principle applies during challenging moments. Imagine facing an unexpected setback in business or receiving disappointing news at work. Your old conditioning may invite you to conclude that nothing ever changes. Instead of accepting that familiar reaction, stop for a moment. Take a slow breath. Repeat the affirmation you have been practicing. Let it guide your response, rather than allowing disappointment to decide your next step. The affirmation becomes a stabilizing influence that protects your long-term thinking from temporary emotions. Another useful habit is to write your affirmations by hand, instead of relying only on spoken repetition. Writing requires a different level of attention. It slows the thinking process and encourages deeper reflection. As you write, notice whether any inner resistance appears. If a statement feels uncomfortable, ask yourself why. Often the discomfort reveals an old belief that is gradually losing its influence. Rather than avoiding that feeling, treat it as evidence that meaningful change is taking place. Your physical posture also plays a quiet but important role. When you repeat affirmations while slouching, rushing, or speaking without energy, your body sends a message that conflicts with your words. Sitting upright, breathing steadily, and speaking with calm conviction creates greater harmony between your thoughts, emotions, and physical presence. The goal is not dramatic performance, it is quiet alignment. Pay attention to the language you use during conversations with other people as well. Your daily vocabulary either strengthens or weakens your conditioning. Replace statements of certainty about failure with statements of commitment to learning. Instead of saying, "I'll probably never figure this out," choose, "I'm learning how to improve this." The difference may appear small, but repeated language gradually influences identity. Identity shapes expectations, and expectations influence behavior. There will be times when affirmations seem ordinary because they have become familiar. Do not mistake familiarity for ineffectiveness. In fact, that growing sense of normality is often a sign that your subconscious is beginning to accept the message. Ideas that once felt unusual start feeling natural. Confidence becomes quieter. You no longer need constant motivation because your thinking has become more stable. Growth begins expressing itself through steady action instead of emotional highs. Another valuable exercise is to connect your affirmations with gratitude. After repeating a statement, identify one real example from your current life that supports it, even if the example seems modest. If your affirmation focuses on creating greater value, remember a conversation where you genuinely helped someone solve a problem. If it focuses on developing confidence, recall a recent situation where you handled something better than you would have a year ago. These examples provide evidence that reinforces your new identity and encourages your mind to continue expanding it. Over time, you may notice that your internal dialogue becomes noticeably different. The encouraging voice begins speaking more often than the critical one. Your first response to opportunity becomes curiosity instead of hesitation. You recover more quickly from mistakes because they no longer define your worth. These quiet shifts rarely attract attention from others at first, yet they influence nearly every decision you make. Eventually, the repetition is no longer something you consciously perform. It becomes part of the rhythm of your thinking. The affirmations have done their work because the qualities they describe are becoming visible in your actions. You approach your responsibilities with greater purpose, your conversations with greater confidence, and your future with greater expectation. At that point, the words have fulfilled their purpose, leaving behind a mindset that consistently supports the life you are creating and prepares you to step forward with unwavering confidence as your transformed self-image begins attracting a higher level of compensation. 5. Act with unwavering confidence as your new self-image attracts greater compensation. As your inner world becomes more disciplined, there comes a moment when thinking alone is no longer enough. A renewed self-image naturally seeks expression through action. This is where many people hesitate. They have spent weeks or months improving their mindset, strengthening their beliefs, and developing a clearer vision. Yet when an opportunity finally appears, they retreat into old habits. The difference between temporary inspiration and lasting transformation is the willingness to act in harmony with the person you have become. Confidence is often misunderstood as the absence of uncertainty. In reality, confidence is the decision to move forward even when every answer is not yet available. It grows through repeated action that confirms your new identity. Every time you choose courage instead of hesitation, you send another message to your subconscious that this is now who you are. Your mind pays attention to what you consistently do, not only to what you consistently think. Imagine someone who has spent months developing valuable skills but continues to avoid conversations that could advance their career. They wait until they feel completely ready before introducing themselves, applying for a better position, or presenting a new idea. That perfect feeling rarely arrives. Yet the person who acts despite reasonable uncertainty gradually becomes more capable because experience teaches lessons that preparation alone never can. Your meditation practice now serves a different purpose. Instead of using it only to reshape beliefs, use it to prepare for meaningful action. Before an important meeting, a business presentation, or a conversation about increased responsibility, spend a few quiet minutes settling your attention. Allow unnecessary tension to fade. Then mentally rehearse yourself responding with calm, clarity, and genuine interest. You are not trying to eliminate every challenge. You are preparing your mind to remain steady regardless of what happens. This kind of preparation changes your presence in subtle but powerful ways. You listen more carefully because you are no longer consumed by self-doubt. You communicate with greater simplicity because you are not trying to prove your worth. You ask thoughtful questions because curiosity has replaced insecurity. People naturally respond differently when they sense consistency between your words, your attitude, and your actions. There is another important principle that deserves careful attention. Greater compensation follows greater contribution. This is not simply about working longer hours or staying busier than everyone else. It is about becoming increasingly valuable in the way you solve problems, support others, and improve the quality of your work. When your self-image expands, your desire to contribute expands with it. You begin asking, how can I make this better, rather than how little can I do? Consider two employees given the same responsibility. One completes only the minimum requirements because they believe their effort makes little difference. The other looks for ways to improve the process, communicate more effectively, and help the entire team succeed. Both receive the same assignment, yet one creates significantly more value. Over time, that difference becomes difficult to ignore. Increased compensation often follows those who consistently increase their contribution before they receive recognition for it. This principle extends far beyond traditional employment. Whether you own a business, work independently, or serve within an organization, the marketplace responds to value. People willingly exchange resources for solutions, reliability, creativity, and trust. As your thinking matures, you become less focused on chasing money and more focused on becoming the kind of person whose work naturally deserves greater rewards. One practical exercise is to end each day with a brief period of reflection. Sit quietly for a few minutes and ask yourself simple questions. Where did I act consistently with my new self-image today? Where did I allow old habits to influence my choices? What opportunity can I respond to differently tomorrow? These questions are not meant to create guilt. They are designed to strengthen awareness, so tomorrow's decisions become more intentional than today's. Notice how confidence develops through accumulated evidence. Each completed task, each meaningful conversation, and each challenge handled with composure becomes another reminder that you are capable of more than you once believed. Your subconscious stores these experiences. They gradually replace memories of hesitation with memories of growth. This creates a positive cycle where confident action strengthens belief, and stronger belief encourages even more confident action. It is also important to become comfortable with temporary discomfort. Every meaningful improvement requires entering situations that once felt unfamiliar. If your new self-image includes leading others, there will be moments when leadership feels challenging. If your goal includes earning substantially more income, there will be decisions that stretch your current abilities. Instead of interpreting discomfort as a warning to stop, recognize it as evidence that you are expanding beyond previous limitations. Many people unknowingly wait for external approval before fully believing in themselves. They expect confidence to arrive after receiving a promotion, reaching a financial milestone, or hearing praise from others. Yet lasting confidence develops in the opposite direction. It begins with an internal decision about who you choose to become. External results eventually reflect that decision, but they do not create it. Your meditation, your affirmations, your visualization, and your daily habits have all been preparing you to make this shift from within. There is great power in keeping promises to yourself. If you decide to read for 30 minutes every evening, do it consistently. If you commit to practicing meditation each morning, protect that commitment. If you choose to improve one professional skill every month, follow through. These actions may appear unrelated to financial success, but they strengthen self-trust. A person who trusts themselves approaches opportunity differently from someone who constantly breaks promises to themselves. Your relationships also begin changing as your self-image evolves. You naturally seek conversations that encourage growth rather than reinforce limitation. You become more willing to learn from people who have achieved what you hope to accomplish. Instead of feeling intimidated by their success, you become inspired by it. Your questions become more thoughtful because your attention has shifted from comparison to learning. One of the quietest signs of transformation is the disappearance of unnecessary urgency. You continue working diligently, yet you are no longer driven by desperation. Desperation often clouds judgment, leading to impulsive decisions or opportunities that promise quick results without lasting value. Confidence creates patience. Patience allows wisdom to guide action. You begin recognizing that meaningful success is built through consistent improvement rather than dramatic shortcuts. As your contribution increases, your expectations rise in healthy ways. You become more willing to negotiate fairly, present your ideas confidently, and pursue opportunities that align with your growing capabilities. You no longer shrink your ambitions simply to remain comfortable. At the same time, you remain teachable because confidence and humility work together. You understand that there is always another skill to develop, another lesson to learn, and another way to serve people more effectively. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. The opportunities you once believed were reserved for others start appearing within your own experience. You notice possibilities that previously escaped your attention. People begin trusting you with greater responsibility because your behavior consistently reflects reliability and purpose. Conversations lead to unexpected introductions. Small improvements accumulate into significant results. What seems like luck from the outside is often the natural consequence of an identity that has been patiently shaped through disciplined thinking and deliberate action. Your financial life becomes a reflection of who you have become rather than a measure of your personal worth. Income is no longer something you chase with anxiety. It becomes one expression of the value you create, the confidence you demonstrate, and the contribution you make. The law of compensation reveals itself not as a mysterious force, but as a practical principle. As your self-image expands, your thinking improves. As your thinking improves, your actions become more intentional. As your actions create greater value, greater rewards naturally follow. And this is where the true transformation reaches its fullest expression. You no longer see yourself as someone hoping for a different future. You see yourself as someone who has deliberately conditioned the mind, strengthened the character, and aligned daily action with a higher standard. From that foundation, increasing your income is no longer the primary achievement. The greatest achievement is becoming the person capable of creating that income again and again, because the source of lasting prosperity now exists within you.